I got something to add to that before you go. I promise you, I don't know this guy, and I swear I didn't write anything that he said. Okay, as many times as
We've heard it verbatim out of your
yeah,
mouth.
I promise you, I've never met the guy in my life, and I really appreciate your efforts, what you want to do, and I'm like gung ho, 110% behind you, stocking Florida bass and F1s. But I have, after being here on the agency for a year and a half now, I am cautiously, in some places, I think we need a little bit more data. I'm still for it right now, 100%, but I do think we need to have just a little bit more data before we put them everywhere. And I know that's probably not what you want to hear today, because I'm as much a pro advocate tournament fisherman as anybody you'll ever meet. But I think we need just a little bit more data before we move that direction. Thank you for your time today.
All right, Government Relations Chairman Jamie Woodson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to recognize Chris Richardson to give a report on the Reelfoot Lake public meeting. It was held on November 19th, and the topic of discussion was the Reelfoot Lake Preservation Permit.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just wanted to give the commission a quick update. You had asked the agency and the staff to go down to Reelfoot and conduct a public meeting to gauge the level of interest in potential changes to the requirements for hunting and fishing on Reelfoot Lake, and specifically the Reelfoot Preservation Permit. We have completed that meeting. We had about 40 members of the public that attended. The meeting lasted about an hour. We had several comments on the Reelfoot Preservation Permit. We talked about a variety of other topics. All in all, I felt like the meeting went very well. I will report to the commission that there was absolutely no support from anyone in the room to change the current requirements and change from a Reelfoot Preservation Permit to requiring a WMA permit. There was no support for that type of proposal. I was a little bit surprised to receive quite a bit of public or positive comment from the folks down at Reelfoot. The sentiment is the crappie are coming back. The sentiment was that Black Bayou and the refuges were full of water. They were starting to have ducks show up. So all in all, it was a very positive meeting. The proposal that was discussed in switching the Reelfoot Preservation Permit will be on the January agenda, and it will be before the commission to take action on. And at that point, the staff and the agency will have a formal recommendation for the commission. With that, Madam Chairman, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Great. Members, any questions?
Nobody was in favor.
Nobody was in favor of removing the requirement of the Reelfoot Preservation Permit and adding the requirement of the WMA permit.
Any additional questions? Great. With that, thank you, Chris, very much. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman Woodson. Moving to Chairman Cox with the Audit Committee.
Mr. Summers is going to give us a quick update on audit-related issues.
All right, we will stress quick. It's past my lunchtime. Chairman Cox's Audit Committee is required to meet a couple of times a year, so I will note for the record that the entire Audit Committee is present. I don't have a lot of new information regarding audits. We are between cycles for our big audits. The major ones that we have to deal with are the federal audit, which is done on a 5-year cycle. They have not notified us of when they'll be back to do that. Should be a couple of years. The other big one is the state comptroller's audit. They do that kind of irregularly, but every 2 to 3 years. They have not notified us of when the next one would be. When they come, there will be several of them, and they'll stay for several months, and will bill us accordingly. But as of now, we're just waiting to hear from them when they're coming back. A couple of things that have happened recently. We've been notified by the Department of General Services that they'll be doing a purchasing audit to make sure that our purchasing procedures are following the state guidelines, and they do that every couple of 3 years. We had a civil rights compliance audit from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and they have sent us a letter saying that we are fully in compliance. Got that letter a few weeks ago, so that one's taken care of, and they'll probably do that again in 5 years or so. Also have received notification that we're, from the Comptroller's Office, that we're in compliance with our Title VI Civil Rights Plan, which is discrimination based on race and national origin. So we're okay there. Also okay on our Title IX compliance plan, which is sex discrimination in education programs. So now you know everything I know. Are there any questions?
Any questions from the commission or the audience? Thank you, Barry.
Okay.
That's all we have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman Cox. Moving to the Budget Committee, Chairman Harold Cannon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With the committee's permission, since none of the budget expansions formally involve agency funds, I'm going to let all three presentations be made, and then we'll vote on it at one time by committee, then it'll be presented to the commission that way. Are there any objections? With that, the committee recognizes either Tim Churchill or Major Brian Ripley. I'm not sure who is doing this on the 140-acre Taylor tract, Rankin Bottoms.
Better ask Tim because he knows what he's talking about.
You're looking sharp today, Major. That's I like the new uniform.
Any costumes, sir.
Well, let's see, get this up. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about because I wrote down the wrong numbers for what I'm gonna ask for, so, what I wrote down on the, was, 420,000 for the Taylor tract, but it is, I have to ask for the full amount so we can write a check for it, but we're not, the non-federal portion of it is coming from the wetland fund. There's some wetlands on this site. So the total amount I'm asking for the Taylor tract is 520,000, of which we'll pull that extra amount from the wetland fund. Make that up, duly noted up front. This tract is at Rankin Bottom, WMA. It's in Cott County in East Tennessee. We own most of that peninsula that's the headwaters of Douglas Lake already, and this would pretty much finish off purchases up there. So anyway, that's the first tract. And the second tract is so tiny you almost can't see it. It's I can't remember how big it is. 4 acres. It's an in-holding at Yanali, down in Murray County, and it's supposed to be about $40,000, and the 25% match for that would be coming from the Nature Conservancy. So the ask on this one is $40,000, not $30,000. And I apologize for dropping that on you.
That's all right. For clarification, Rankin Bottoms, the total request for the budget expansion is 520,000, of which 420,000 is federal dollars.
Sorry,
And
560. Ken just told me it's 560.
All right, we're gonna vote on these separate, just because I'm
There
afraid
you
we're
go,
getting some
there you
muddy
go.
water here.
Christmas, man.
That was a good plan, it just fell through.
Yeah.
560,000.
Do I hear 600?
No.
You know, I mean, is
No,
this,
you
we're
did
kinda
not.
got a little auction going here, all right? Would you all throw in 38,000 on this? Anyway, all right. 140-acre Taylor tract at Rankin Bottoms. The requested budget expansion is for $560,000, of which $460,000 is federal monies,
Correct,
and the balance of $100,000 will come from the wetland fund.
right,
Is that correct?
right.
Let's just go ahead and hear this as a committee, just let it stand on its own. Do I have a motion for approval? And I have a second. All in favor say aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The next budget expansion that Tim presented is for Battersby
Battersby, correct.
Track. The total budget expansion amount will be $40,000, $30,000 of that amount is federal funds, and $10,000 will come from the Nature Conservancy. Again, there are 0 agency dollars in this acquisition. Is that correct?
It is.
Do I have a motion for approval? Do I have a second? I have a second. All in favor? Any opposition? I didn't even ask for discussion. That's my screw up again. My apologies, folks. With the committee's permission, I want to go ahead and hear the expansion related to Whitman Hollow Marina on Norris Lake. Darren, you have shrunk.
Yes, I have. Darren's out of town on business, so I'll be presenting this. This is a budget expansion request for $350,000. It's a boating infrastructure grant to be awarded to Whitman Hollow Marina on Norris Lake. The money is 100% federal funds, and the match will be supplied by the recipient, Whitman Hollow Marina. They will be utilized to construct 24 transient slips for boats over 26 feet, an ADA accessible boating facility with restrooms, and a 200-foot catwalk that will connect these facilities. So that's what it's for.
Thank you, sir. You have heard the proposal. Again, there are no agency funds. Do I have a motion for this expansion? I have a motion. Do I have a second? Do I have any discussion? I'll do a little bit better this time.
Got a question.
Yeah.
Is this a private marina?
Yes.
Are they charging for these slips?
I think they have the option to do that, but this is a program where the federal government from the trust fund awards money to private marinas to benefit recreational boaters and also the local economy through the construction project. I don't know. Do you know what the rules are on what they can do, Ed?
Yes, sir, they can charge a fee, not all do. There's a cap on the fee. I've honestly forgotten what that is, but when it gets to this amount of money, they go through a national bidding process, and that process then is awarded by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service based on the criteria that this boating infrastructure program goes for. It has to be for transient boats, essentially the type for boats is that it's not slips that people would rent on a monthly basis. It's a boater going from point A to point B, and they need a place to stop. They can stop there, and sometimes there is a limit to how many days they can stay. It's usually, I think, 3. But in any case, they are allowed to recoup some expense. And it used to be $5, and I think it's increased now, but I don't know what it is.
Commissioner King, I want to make sure. Are you okay? Yes. Commissioner Cox?
What's the trust fund? What's the name? I mean, what,
It's the recreational fishing and boating trust fund.
It's what you would ordinarily call Wallop Bro. It's the
Yeah.
boating side.
Okay, yeah,
Wallop
okay.
Bro.
all right.
Are there any other questions from the commission? Are there any questions from the public? In fairness, are there any questions from the public on the previous items that were voted on, just since it's Christmas? Okay. I would remind the committee, this is a federal program, and the match is being provided with non-agency dollars. With that said, is there a motion for this budget expansion approval of $350,000 for Whitman Hollow Marina?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Mr. Chairman, on behalf of the Budget Committee, we have 3 budget expansions to bring before the Commission. The first is a budget expansion in the amount of $560,000 for the 140-acre Taylor Track at Rankin Bottoms. $100,000 will come from the Wetland Fund. $460,000 are federal monies. The second budget expansion is for $40,000 for the acquisition of the Battersby Track. $40,000, of that 40,000, 30,000 is federal money, and 10,000 will be from the Nature Conservancy. The third budget expansion is in the amount of $350,000 for improvements, including ADA improvements to Whitman Hollow Marina. It is a mixture of federal dollars and local match, again, none coming from the agency. We recommend these be approved.
Thank you, Chairman Cannon. I take that in the form of a motion. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion from the commission? Any from the audience? All in favor of these three budget expansions, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Budget expansion passes. Chairman Cannon.
Mr. Chairman, our last item of business is update on the financial report from Ken Tarkington.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There is a two-page financial report in your book. I'll be reporting through the month of October 2015. The boating portion is at the top of the page. We're approximately 2.3% above in boat registrations from where we are at the same point in time last year. And the expenses approximate 22% of the annual allotment for the boating fund. Middle of the page, the wildlife fund, we're almost 4% below what our projection was for the year. Again, our largest, as we discussed in the past, our largest influx of revenue are in the spring months from next year. The expense for the wildlife fund is approximately 21% of the annual allotment. The watchable endowment, the watchable wildlife fund, has a little over $6 million, has about 6,000 that can be transferred. We have $43 million in the lifetime sportsman account. I would mention at this point both balances have been invested with the Treasury has executed their investments, and since last month's commission meeting, the full amount of the $12 and $4 million respectively from the wildlife and boating funds have been invested. There's not been really enough time to see how those earnings are doing. The last investment, I believe, was the first of last week or the end of the week before. So we'll see how that goes. But we have, the Treasury has invested the full amount. It's in round figures $64.5 million. Sounds like a lot to you and me. They say it's infinitesimal with what they invest. So, of course, they're up in the billions, but 64 million here and 64 million there, and you got some money. Anyway, on the second page of the financial report, the Wetlands Acquisition Fund, there's approximately $16,300,000 as a balance in October. We've zeroed the maintenance account out as we usually do, and the compensation, or the in lieu of tax fund, has $446,000 balance in it. Are there any questions or comments?
Any questions from the commission? Any questions from the audience? Ken, thank you. One last closing note unrelated to finances. I personally want to thank Major Ripley for taking on John Gregory's duties while he is on the men's, and I really commend the Region 4 staff as a whole for just having his back and letting him focus on the things he needs to focus on. So, well done. He does look like John in that suit. I don't disagree. That's.
I wouldn't come back, pal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman Cannon. At this time, Director Carter, you got any closing comments?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to go back to the audit committee just for a second. And the only reason sometimes you shouldn't even bring things up, but kind of a personal pet peeve they came out very recently, about 2 weeks ago, with things in the news media about missing items in state agencies. In Tennessee, the Wildlife Resources Agency, we were tagged with 7, as they put it, lost items. There were other state agencies that had well over 1,000. But anyway, for whatever reason, we kept showing up as the decal on the news. And not only that, but lost in the state government means you no longer have it. So it's generic to everything. So we lost a boat, a 14-foot John boat, when it flooded last year, and it went over the little dam there that we had at the state park, tore it up. Anyway, then we had a motor that was, people cut through the barbed wire, went in, stole the motor out of the area. We filed a police report. So on the news, it came out and said, the TWRA lost a boat and a motor, and they showed a big patrol boat on the agency on the TWRA lakes. Anyway, I just wanted you to know, as far as I know, we have the least number of missing items of any state agency, and they weren't lost. We knew what happened to them, but I just wanted to clear that up. I feel better already. Do what? There was a radio lost in the brush, too. It was a GPS, fell out of somebody's pocket, and it knows exactly where it is. We just don't. The only other thing I wanted to say was, it is the Christmas season, and I just want to tell y'all that there are probably still people who don't know that y'all give your time up for about 2 days, 10 times a year to come and be a part of all the things that the agency's involved in and give us that oversight in that direction. And that's not lost on us. We just want to say as an agency how much we appreciate what you do personally and all the time and energy that you commit to it. And I'm sure many more people, even me, don't know how much the number of calls, the number of contacts, and all those things you get at home. So, again, not to belabor the point, just thank you for all you do for us, and we appreciate very much what you do, not only for the resource, but for our agency and the people who are in it and treating us like family. So, thank you for that, and I do wish you a Merry Christmas and the very best going into the new year on behalf of the whole agency.
Thank you, Director Carter. Is there any more discussion from the commission? Any more discussion from the audience? All right, our next scheduled meeting is Thursday, January the 21st in Memphis. So, if all hearts and minds are clear, we're adjourned till then.